Man, I remember I used to live in Maine during my high school years from 2005 to 2012. And it was some of the best times of my life, and it was my favorite place I lived out of everywhere. When I tell people that I used to live there or I'm from there, a lot of people will be like ultra interested and ask me questions about it, and more importantly, like say like why did you leave and all that stuff, or like I would have never left. Why are you leaving? I look back at it of how amazing it used to be, and then I see what it looks like now, and it really makes you sad because it really hurts to have to leave your hometown. It's never something you want to do. We originally left in 2012 because of my dad's job at BIW going to lay him off or something like that, but they put a stop to whatever that was years later. There was like protests about it or something like that. I don't remember, I don't know. So that was actually why we left. So I came back in 2022, 2 years ago around this time. I was there for the autumn road trip and I started to miss my hometown. I was like, man, everything from my experience in the past is back. But I remember it used to be such an amazing place back then. I have to kind of play a little guitar real quick to kind of get my memory flowing. I remember it used to be such a different place. It was an amazing place. I remember I could get on my bicycle and ride on the dirt trails and the dirt road, go down the hill on the dirt road and the trails, and across the Androscoggin River at the Bridge of Lisbon. And there'd be the gas station or mini mart right there. It was like a tiny place and clustered a little bit, but kept very clean and spacey. You would see like 30 different beverages to choose from energy drinks alone. This is like one of the originals I've had at that time, so I do kind of feel like I'm 16 again drinking this. I remember there'd be like 30 things to choose from, 30 different flavors, over 20 different companies. Sobe was in glass bottles back then. And I can just remember there was so much to choose from, and I used to spend minutes there just figuring out what I want because there's so many choices. But now you just stare and figure out what you want because you're like, man, oh, it's the same thing. Oh, it's one of everything. Maybe two different flavors. Okay, maybe. God, it's the same choice. What's the difference? Oh my God, that's like everything's the same. It's like what happened? Back in the day, whoa, so much to choose from and varieties and different flavors and companies. Now it's just what the hell. So anyway, I remember getting my beverage, getting on my bicycle, and talking to townspeople on the way while sipping on the drink. Sometimes I had to walk on the bike because it was kind of hard to drink and ride at the same time. You could ride a bicycle anywhere, whether it's the road or the sidewalk. No issues, no complaints, nothing. You could ride a bicycle all around the town. You really wouldn't see too many cops like hiding around. You wouldn't see cops driving by. You maybe see one or two driving by, but for the most part, they only come out like when they're called or they have an emergency or they're commuting to like a place like get a food or a beverage. Other than that, we didn't see too many compared to what I see today. I remember years ago, I can't remember what road it is. It's wherever Lisbon is by the city hall or town office. I think what it's called. Yeah, town office. I had one of these beverages, and without thinking, I littered and threw it. And there was a cop right next to me, sirening and turning around. He was about to give me a ticket, but a friend I knew who was friends with cops saved my ass. Good times. But moving on, so I remember you could like get 30 different things to choose from, whether it's food, drinks, or anything. You had many choices of companies, competition, innovation, choices, opportunities. The high school would be right down there, and we'd all chit chat and talk and have a good time in school, and then wait for school to get off, get on our bicycles, and hop to another convenience store right next to the school. And there's more choices to choose from. This was back when we had an energy drink called Lost, which was the same makers as Monster. Nobody really knows what it is when I talk about it here, but they were originated, I think, in Southern California. And it was the same brand as Monster and the same company. It actually had the same flavor. And I remember it was like a vanilla cream soda flavor of it. It actually tasted really interesting and good. Like, it was innovation. Like, it was the same flavor as Monster, but a creamy and other fruit flavor to it. And it was delicious. And I remember back then, energy drinks were actually really good and they had high quality. Nowadays, it just seems like they're too sugary, sweet, and sour. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, my taste buds have changed, or they changed the ingredients. Because I noticed they changed the quality to it like before I even finished high school. But that's not important. So, what was Maine like? Everything besides that, you can ride, no problems, no interference, no crime, no feeling of being watched, no feeling of government control. It was super laid back. Townspeople were laid back. Everyone just, it was kind of like a village a little bit, like you see in Legend of Zelda, kind of like style. Townspeople every day, you see the people around, you wave, say hi. It was a small, simple country life, basically. Yeah, you could ride your bike to a friend's house and just text and say you're here. Or there were times we could just not even knock and come in. Like, we could literally just hop on our bikes and hang out at a friend's house after high school and just walk in their basement, kind of like what you see on South Park, where, like, the next clip, they are all hanging around playing video games. That's how it was back then. You could enter the dude's house and come in the basement, he'd be playing Xbox, and he'd be like, yo, what's up, man? Or we'd hang out with the one guy's projector in the basement, and we would all just have a good time. You know, we were all hanging out together. We were all riding bikes around town, down the trails and the hills and the paper mill trail in Lisbon. You know, we would carpool with the one guy who had a car. I didn't even need a car when I lived there. I could ride a bike all the way to school, ride a bike to other parts of the town. I was able to, like, commute independently without a parent driving me in the shitty suburbs that we moved 2 years later. So, overall, I remember my parents would have to drive me to the other side of town. I'd have a car. We would drive to Brunswick and other parts of the area, visiting Portland every once in a while. I was always excited on road trips. Like, it used to be a family gathering, family places to eat, family places to go, having lobster rolls, like, right on the waterfront or a river or the beach, and just drinking Moxie and lobster rolls all day. We could all go to a lobster place near the coast, like Taste of Maine and Woolwich, and be able to afford it just fine. Like, prices were reasonable back then. I remember lobsters were, I think, $9 a pound or something like that. And overall, everyone was so laid back and so nice. Yeah, they had their own little Boston attitude at times, but in the end, their hearts were in the right place and everybody's forgiving kind of area. Overall, it was such an amazing place. Like, the summers I would spend staying up all night and waiting for the sun to come up, seeing like all the humidity and vapor around the trees evaporate as the sun comes up. And being a sunset kid in California, having an East Coast sunrise in Maine is like totally opposite of how it feels. It's really interesting. I would commute around town, hang out at friends' houses, walk in the woods, pretend they're cities. It used to be an amazing place. But I went back in 2022, and it was starting to feel like Nazi Germany and Cop Island, so to say. The people were different, the vibe of the area felt different. It just seemed like a totally different world. And once the honeymoon was over after 3 months of living there, it just seemed like I was starting to see everything in a totally different view of what it used to be. I was pulled over 6 times for stupid shit. First time was a license plate light being out, and these cops hide with their fucking lights off on the side of the road, literally hiding from plain view, and they bust you for the dumbest shit. And I'm like, is that even American and constitutionally legal? Like, when you look at London and the UK, you're going to notice their cop cars are, like, designed to be seen. They're, like, blue and yellow highlighted, and they're out in the open for need of assistance. And you look at America, they're like fucking road pirates, especially in Maine. They get you, and you don't even know they're there. When I'm driving around the back roads towards Green, where I was with my buddy, you could literally see cop cars hiding with their lights off at church parking lots, on the side in front of someone's house under a tree that's a blind spot. You would see, like, in my hometown I grew up at next to Lisbon and Durham, where the bridge was, you would see a cop hiding there with their lights off, cop driving around here, police hanging out at parking rides looking at cars and plates. When you're driving in Brunswick, there would be Brunswick police, like, in dark colored cars where you can barely see the police sign, and you could just see them pop out of nowhere, and they blend in with other black cars, and they'll literally ride your tail for a full 90 seconds just to read your license plates. And I was in the state of Ohio with my plates at the time, and so they were following me around, and when I got to a parking lot doing DoorDash to a Burger King in the Cook's Corner part of Brunswick, they drove off. They're like a bunch of pussies, and I flagged them down. I was like, hey, can I help you? Like, really, I don't appreciate you following me just to read my tags. I'm not a terrorist. I'm not a part of ISIS, and I'm not a communist. And it just seems like the people in the state are just okay with it, but yet everyone in the state is like, I hate Janet Mills. She's the evil version of fucking Austin Powers. Like, 99% of the state hates the governor, but they let all of this happen. And it's gotten way too liberal, way too political, and way too blue. Like, it was worse than the state of California. I lived in California and San Diego 5 years ago, and I thought California was horrible, but Maine was just as bad, if not worse. It makes me sad. Like, it used to be so fucking amazing. And I made videos about that before, and I was stopped by the police in Brunswick. I was at some hotel, I can't remember exactly which one. I think it was Moonlight Inn on Pleasant Street, Brunswick. That was where I stayed at, because the hotel clerk, who was the same age as me, was like really cool and decided to give me a discount of like 20%, and always had a place for me to stay. And that was where I kind of laid low that night when I got stopped for the 6th time for a headlight being on the right side. Loud exhausts are totally illegal. That was part of the reason I kept being stopped all the time, probably. The flange went out because of the salt and the snow, and the car was old as it is, so I guess over time the flange and the exhaust just was falling apart. The thing was, I couldn't fix it. Now, Maine's always been a state for vehicle inspections. That's fine. But back in the day, it was no big deal. If your car didn't pass a state inspection test, you could just take it to the car mechanics and get it like financially paid for, financially worked on to get an inspection sticker. I will admit, police are really laid back. You know, I only got a warning and a citation, but the fact that I kept being stopped over really stupid things and interrogated was kind of making me uncomfortable. Back in high school when I lived there in the late 2000s, we never had that. There was one night I rode my bicycle in the Lisbon-Durham Bridge at night, and I have been doing that for years and never had any problems. I have been riding my bicycle there at night at 1 a.m. in the summer months for years and never had any problems, and I've never even seen cops. They may have driven by here and there, but this one cop was hiding in a hilly area on the side where you couldn't see him. And as I rode, I can see a car approaching me, and the police lights were turning on. And it was at that very moment, I was like, holy shit, dude. Maine is starting to look like a third world country. I'm starting to feel like I'm either in China, North Korea, or even Singapore, where they give you a fine for this, a fine for that. They stop and flag you for that. And he was asking for my ID, where I'm headed to, what I'm doing. And I'm like, I don't feel the need to give you my ID or ask you what I'm doing. I feel like I don't have to answer questions. I've not committed a crime. And he's like, well, you were riding without a bike light. And I'm like, I've been doing that for years. And I did that in Boston. I did it in New York. I did it even here in my hometown at night. But only in Maine I've been stopped for stupid shit like a front plate, a headlight out, a license plate light out, riding a bicycle without a light. Like, it was fucking stupid. I was just like, I gotta get out of here. It's really sad. Maine used to be an amazing place. Now it's just too liberal, too many people moving there.